All right. Okay. That's exciting. The commission shall be called to order. We will begin with a pledge of allegiance. Would you lead us, Commissioner Montana?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have 4 up at the dais today. Commissioner Amy Harding is excused and will not be joining us for today's meeting. Okay, we have an agenda in front of us. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion to approve is presented. Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Executive Director Report, Alex Smith.
Thank you, Commission President Pasavada. So what's been going on recently? On November 7th, the Port of Olympia turned 103 years old. So we are very excited about the foresight our forefathers showed 103 years ago in making this a public waterfront and a public port. And we are appreciative of everybody who's played a part in the history of the port. Marine Drive, we concluded the contract to do the repaving of Marine Drive over the weekend. There was a dry window of opportunity and the striping was done yesterday on Sunday, and it looks magnificent. So special thanks to James Summers, who oversaw this project and worked very hard to keep all of our costs down and get it done not just on time, but early and on budget. So on Wednesday evening, I'm holding a town hall to be right here at 5:30 p.m. and welcome everybody to come in. You can come and participate in person or virtually, and I'll have a brief presentation about some stuff and then happy to answer from anyone. And then our November issue of the Port Pulse is out. And again, the Port Pulse is just a way to provide some updates about what's going on at the port in a pretty quick and dirty format. It has blogs, articles, and operational highlights. And this November, we are recognizing National Aviation Month. And it features a special focus on aviation and the role it plays in our region. So go to our website and check it out. And we'll look forward to December's. And then just a reminder for folks that tomorrow, Tuesday, November 11th is Veterans Day. The Port of Olympia offices, Swantown Marina, Boatworks, and Fuel Dock will all be closed. And we want to personally recognize our port staff who are veterans. So we've got Tricia Miller, our controller, Frank Boss, who works on our marine terminal, Brett Barnes, our director of enterprise services, Tim Salee, who's one of our maintenance techs, and then Lauren Hendrickson, our director of operations. And that is it. We always value your input. Please come to commission meetings and provide your feedback from the town halls. Call us or email us. And if you want information about the port, lots of ways to engage with us. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Smith. Okay, we're going to transition to public comment. And before we do that, I'd like to make a reminder to those seeking to give input today that comments should be directed to the commission as a whole and should not include comments about individual port staff or members of the public. And we really request that at this moment and at every moment, people speak with courtesy. Members of the public as well as port staff and commissioners shall be courteous in language and demeanor and confine remarks to those facts that are germane, relevant to the question or issue under discussion. With that, we will move to public comment. I Don't see anyone online signed up for public comment, or I'm not sure how that's shown again at this moment, but I will start with the people in the room. And we will call Eli Skillman.
Eli Skillman, president of ILW Local 47. We need to continue moving forward with the second warehouse for the marine terminal. The last 2.5 years have been a steady stream of ships coming in and trucks going out loaded with paper pulp supplying mills all over the West Coast and the northern United States. The current warehouse cannot meet the demands for Suzano's plans for expansion. Each shipload grows in tonnage, and the ship expected in port at the end of this month will be the largest load yet. Suzano has been extremely happy with the relationship that they've grown with port staff, labor, and SSA, our local stevedore company. It would be a real shame if this amazing opportunity that we have to continue to cultivate this relationship with a customer like Suzano was jeopardized because we ran out of space to accommodate them. There is so much opportunity here, mainly for revenue for the port and most importantly, family wage jobs for the community. Please don't delay this. Continue to move forward with the second warehouse. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skillman. I'd next like to call Lee Reiner.
I just wanted to thank everybody tonight. I know being a port commissioner is not an easy job. You get very little recompense for your long hours. I know that a lot of the important issues with the City of Olympia, Thurston County lie within the Port of Olympia. And so a lot of pressure is on your shoulders. So I just wanted to thank you for working here at the Port of Olympia. I also wanted to mention the peninsula is on fill. If we have a major earthquake event, basically the fill will liquefaction, basically it becomes like mud. The roads will become mud, Marine Terminal Drive will become mud. Any buildings that we have out on the peninsula, this isthmus, will be mud. So my concern is spending Port of Olympia money, taxpayer money, on more buildings when we know they keep talking about the big one coming. We know this is going to happen, and basically this will turn to mud. People say, oh, it doesn't matter, we're going to have pilings under the buildings. Well, if you don't have roads to the buildings because everything is mud because of liquefaction, then it doesn't matter if you have a building there or not. Many of us are concerned about warehouses. Essentially, many in the past voted for warehouses. These warehouses are not jobs. They're going to be filled with robots. So when we talk about jobs in Thurston County, we've got to realize, do we have long-term jobs or just have pretense of jobs? So when we vote for the people of Thurston County, the workers of Thurston County, everybody wants a job. We understand that. We've got to have living wage jobs. Some of you ran on the premise of bringing in software manufacturing. I remember some candidates kept saying when we were working with them, oh, we want to bring software manufacturing, software engineers into our buildings and fill them up with software engineers. Well, it never happened. So now we just keep having these votes on these warehouses, like on 93rd that sits empty, a huge warehouse, been sitting empty for a long time. And my concern is we've got to vote for all the people of Thurston County. People are having trouble paying their taxes. People are having trouble paying their mortgages. People are having trouble with their jobs. It doesn't look good for the immediate future with these tariffs, bringing more. And also we need to have a $200 million cleanup. Who's going to pay for the $200 million cleanup? Are the feds going to pay for the $200 million cleanup? I don't really think so. If we don't have it dredged out here, are the big ships going to be able to come in to Butt Inlet? As last I heard, the freeboard was only a few feet of sediment. And if we get too much sediment in Butt Inlet, these huge ships cannot come into Butt Inlet. So when we talk about expanding the marine terminal, we have to take these into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Reiner. Next, we'd like to hear from, I think it's Richard Korn. Korn.
Yes, Korn. Thank you.
You're Mr. Tiffany. Hello.
I've been called that before. Yes, thank you. Okay, embarrassed. I want to reiterate what Eli said about the warehouse. I've been down here working at the Marine Terminal for the last 20 years. And of all the work and cargoes and all the things that I've seen, this has pretty much been the most promising. And when I look back through history and all the things we've done, things that I've seen come and go, we had a big customer years ago, Rainbow Ceramics, and that helped boost our membership as we got to hire a lot of full-time people, and the port bought a lot of equipment, and that was really positive and things were really going. Well, that kind of crashed. But at that time they thought, hey, you know what? Let's build another warehouse. And you know what? We were going to do it. It was all set to go. And for some reason, the decision was made when the market for that product kind of went away and it looked like, oh, well, now we're not going to be able to use the warehouse. We would be using it now. So I would hate to lose the opportunity again to invest in our marine terminal and it be a complete asset. I think no matter how you look at it, judging by what I've learned in being in the industry for 20 years, any other of the regional ports have gone completely container. I've seen them tear down warehouses. So when a customer is looking for a on-dock warehouse, which is what we have, it's a precious commodity and it is really going to be sought after. And I bet there's going to be customers for it, no matter how you look at it. But this one looks pretty darn serious, like Eli said. They really want to expand in this area. They were bringing their material in on rail from the Gulf Coast, which doesn't seem very efficient. So they seem happy here. We're happy, and we're always struggling to get more membership, more hours. And we all live here in the community. We spend our money here, and we all want to stick around here. And so I urge to continue on with this warehouse. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Korn. All right, and then we have Debbie Patton.
Hi, Debbie Patton, 43-year member resident of unincorporated Thurston County, Commissioner District 3. And I'm speaking now instead of during the budget hearing because I'm on grandma duty. And when I get a text message, I might have to exit stage left. So I wanted to talk about the tax levy. And I know Treasurer Gadman is going to give us a presentation in a few minutes. But what I wanted to say about that is I'm happy to pay my taxes to the Port of Olympia. My home is about $341,000 above the median average assessed home in Thurston County. Those folks with a $515,000 home are paying only $65,000 a year, which is 18 cents a day. I'm paying $95.47, which is 26 cents a day. I am happy to pay that because of the value that it brings to the community. It provides for the Harbor Patrol, which is for public safety. It gives small city grants to the rural parts of the county. It provides entertainment and fun, safe things for families with the special events with the music and the movies and so on. It provides maintenance for the Billy Frank Jr. Trail out here. And in addition to that, it provides economic development to the community, which is part of the mission statement here of the port. These are some big revenue producing projects like the boatyard expansion. I've been reading all about that, how few places there are in the region to haul out a boat, not just big luxury yachts, but fishing boats and, small sailboats right here. And then also, as these two workers have mentioned, the warehouse B. And they've given all the reasons why that's important and why it should have been built years ago and was not, which was a huge disadvantage to our port during COVID when people were looking for warehouse space and we did not have it. So for me, for 26 cents a day, I think it's well worth the money, and I think the citizens should be in support of your budget for 2026, because I am. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes our public comment for today. We will move from that on to the consent calendar.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Five. No opposed, motion carries 4-0. Pending issues or business, Alex?
There are no updates from the last time we updated the commissioners on these. Thank you.
We have nothing on the action calendar or the action other calendar. So with that, we will welcome our Thurston County Treasurer, Jeff Gadman, who's going to give us a briefing about the 2026 Thurston County tax levy.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. I am enough of a geek about finance and assessments and all that, that I'll talk about this anytime for free. So on the first page here is just our mission statement. You know, I'm very proud of the fact that I keep my staff educated and equipped to serve you as best they can. And I think that shows. I get comments every week from different members of the public who compliment or are grateful for dealing with my staff and how professional they are. So I have given this several years, but just in case, it's only once a year, so I do want to do a little bit of a review. The amount of property tax levied is a combination of the results of all of the budgets of all of the tax districts in the county. So each tax district develops their budget every year, independent of the assessed values, and we'll get to a little bit of that here in a little bit. That budget is turned over to the county commissioners. County commissioners pass it to the assessor, and the assessor determines what the levy rate is going to be for that taxing district. So people have a misunderstanding about the interaction between assessed values and levy rates and taxes and all that. And it's actually, I'm going to oversimplify it here, but this is really the basic foundation of how this works. The budget that you pass every year determines the levy rate. Is not the other way around. You do not determine a levy rate. You're asking for a budget. The Port of Olympia's district encompasses everything within the boundaries of Thurston County. You're one of the few port districts that's actually county-wide rather than being dedicated to one single city or municipality. So generally speaking, I got a picture of a seesaw here. As the assessed values in an area start to increase, the levy rates tend to decrease. And it really is that simple. And I'll show you some examples here of the calculations as we go along. And remember, the assessed value of your property does not determine your taxes. What your assessed value does, it determines your share of a particular tax district's budget. So this is the examples that I'm going to go through of calculations are overly simplified, but I do want to show you this. This is for the port for the 2025 tax year. So the budget you passed last year, you said you needed $8,082,440 to operate. The assessed value is a little over 64 billion in the county, and it really is just a simple division number to get to that 0.126 long number for the levy rate. So that is the amount that everybody's going to pay per $1,000 of assessed value. And that's how Ms. Patton came up with, if you have an average assessed value of 515,000 against that 0.126, basically somebody who lives in a median priced house is going to pay about $65 a year. Now it does change every year because the levy rates change, the assessed values change, but that would be based on today's taxes. And it's a really, really tiny print there. But the Port of Olympia is basically responsible for 1.36% of the property taxes in the county. Very, 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 very small. Let's go. I'm going to start you off with a calculation here, and this is going to be our base year. And I used round numbers as much as I could because it's easier, hopefully easier for you to understand. So let's say year number one budget is $5 million. The assessed value is 30 billion. You do the levy rate calculation, 5 million divided by 30 billion, and you come out with a little over 16 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. And all levy rates in Washington State are expressed that way as dollars per thousand. There's a lot of counties, especially back east, the older counties that still use what's called a millage rate, which is dollars per hundred. So let's move on. So now a year has lapsed. We're coming out. And in this year, the tax district elects to take their 1% additional revenue, which are allowed to take under state law. And the assessed values remain the same. So the budget is 5 million plus 50,000. So now it's 5 million and 50,000. You do calculate the division. And now you see the levy rate went up because the budget went up and the assessed values stay the same. So now we're a little over 6.168 per thousand. So a second scenario here is where the district is going to take their 1% and the assessed value has increased 5% in a year. So again, you're taking, and this is an alternate scenario for that second year. So now you're doing the 5,050,000 for budget. Assessed values are now 31,500,000 or 31,500,000,000. Do the calculation and you see that the levy rate drops to 0.160, a little over that. So again, the higher value method, the levy rate went down a little bit with the same budget. So now we're going to use that scenario B that I did and go into a third year. So the district elects to take their 1%. So now their budget's going to be $5,100,500. And the assessed value, which I'm just throwing out a number, it increased 7%, is now a little over 33.7 billion. Do the math. And the levy rate comes out a little over 15 cents per thousand. So again, you see that an increase in the assessed value, even though the budget increased again, dropped the amount of the levy rate. It doesn't mean taxes are necessarily going to go down. So, you know, if assessed values go up 7-8%, and the budget goes up 1%, let me oversimplify this again. So if your assessed value goes up 8%, but the median assessed value in the county went up 3 or 4%, your tax bill is going to go up, even though the levy rate goes down, because the increase in your value did go up higher than the median. But the assessor sets the assessed value every year completely blind to whatever the budget results are going to be, because they do their work as of January 1st, say, so the values that just got mailed out are as of January 1, 2025. Those were calculated over the first few months of 2025. long before any budget deliberations started. So the assessor has no idea what your budget is. Where your assessed value is incredibly important is your share of the budget. And this is why the assessed values need to be fair, so that you're not paying a disproportionate share of that budget compared to your neighbor. So another option that you've got in the budget is you can add the revenue from new construction. And this is something you guys are all in control of the amount of budget that you get. But this is money that is available to you, and it increases the basis for your revenue every year on what the 1% is calculated on. That's important because 1% is not keeping up with inflation. I mean, inflation hasn't been below 1%. What hasn't been 1% or below since 2020. So you're actually losing money every year, even if you're taking that 1%. A robust new construction environment can help make up for that, because that adds to your tax base. Let's say your total assessed value one year was $30 billion, and you get 500 million in new construction one year. Now your basis for calculation is 30,500 million. So basically, with levies and revenue, generally speaking, levy rates tend to rise and fall in. Question?
So is new construction subject to the cap? It's on top of
The very first year new construction is added. That's just added to your total assessed value that you have to work with.
okay.
The next year, yes, the revenues from that are subject to the 1%. So levy rates tend to rise and fall in the opposite direction with assessed values. When I started in 1986, the average levy rate in the county was $15.50. It's ranged in my tenure, and I've been there a little over 39 years, between $9.50 and $18. The current average levy rate in the county is $9.83, and that's the total levy rate that anybody's paying for their average. So it's the port levy and the school districts and the library and all of that. So one thing about there were several years when the port did not take their 1% revenue increase. And on the surface, that sounds really good, but there are some considerations about whether you do that or not. One of the things is, considering your current revenue needs. What happened when there was 5 years in a row that they did not take the 1%, okay, well, they weren't raising their budgets and stuff like that. Well, the rise in assessed values was lifting their budgets up a little bit. But when they were shown how much money investment revenue they lost, because I'm investing your money every single day. And when they were shown how much revenue they lost over 5 years because that money they didn't take was not being invested for them, it was shocking. So my recommendation is always to take the 1%, especially in a time of high inflation, but I'm not you. But you do want to consider, is the economy moving up or down? Right now, the economy is mostly stable. We're not really increasing a lot. We're not really decreasing. That can change, obviously, but we're doing pretty good. What's inflation doing? Right now, inflation is at 3%, and it seems to be holding solid at 3%. The inflation forecast, I just gave you that. It seems to be holding solid at 3%. And it is possible, if you need extra revenue beyond that 1%, you can go to the voters and ask them to pass a levy lid lift for you. And there's certain rules around that. I'm not going to get into that. So, any questions?
I was just wondering, which of the 5 years do you know about when they weren't being banked? Was that recent or was that?
It was in the early 2010s. Yeah,
All right, thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay,
Makes much more sense the second time you hear it.
yeah, I'll bring it every week if you want. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, our second item on our advisory calendar is a public hearing on the draft 2026 proposed operating budget, capital investment plan, and tax levy. We pursuant to RCW 53.35020, the Port of Olympia has prepared the port's draft budget. This was initially presented in a public work session on October 6th and a public meeting on October 27th. And now we will consider it during tonight's public hearing and at the regular public meeting on November 17th. The commission will meet on November 24th at 5:30 p.m. to adopt the port's final 2026 budget of the Port of Olympia for the 2026 calendar year. The draft budget is on file at our offices here at Percival Plaza, should any member of the public wish to obtain a copy at this address during normal business hours, 606 Columbia Street Northwest, Suite 300, Olympia, Washington. And a summary of the budget is also available on the port's website at www.portolympia.com. So the public hearing for the, I know I'm going to have Alex present. So I think I will open it. The public hearing for the adoption of the Port of Olympia's 2026 budget and capital investment plan is now open. At the sign-in table in the rear of the room, or if you are attending online by raising your hand. If you have not yet done so, please do so now if you are interested in speaking during the public hearing. We will proceed in an orderly fashion. We will receive public comments on our proposed budget and capital investment plan for 2026. As I mentioned, we gave public notice of the public hearing by publishing notice each week for 2 consecutive weeks in the Olympian on Sunday, October 26th, 2025, and on Sunday, November 2nd, 2025. Before hearing from members of the public, I call on Port Executive Director Alex Smith and Director of Enterprise Services Brent Barnes, who will give the staff presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we're going to go ahead and give a presentation. It includes some IOUs, some things that the commission asked for at our last meeting on the budget. And then we are going to give the presentation, essentially the presentation we gave last time on the budget, and then we'll public comment. So tonight, it's a public hearing. We'll talk about the budget and capital investment plan, and then an opportunity for public comment. First, we'll do commission IOUs, then we'll review the budget schedule, the budget assumptions, the draft budget, the proposed tax levy. We'll talk a little bit about our bond debt, about non-operations, the capital investment plan, environmental, and then we welcome your questions and comments. So a few IOUs. There was discussion about the port headquarters and the renovations for that. So the background is the current cost estimate is between 4.02 and 5.07 million. That's about $206 to $260 per square foot. We're proposing that the cost be spread over 2 years, so 3.8 million in 2025 and up to 1.3 million in 2026. And all along the way, of course, looking for opportunities for cost savings. Commissioner Basavita had asked for what is the cost for ADA compliance only. And the cost differs whether you have a public space or not. So if we do not have a public commission meeting room, the cost for ADA compliance is $42,000. If we do have a public commission meeting space, then the cost for ADA compliance is $251,600. But regardless, the cost for building code compliance is the big ticket item, and that's 1.9 million. And I think Commissioner Ayal had asked about what sort of the rental savings over time, and is there essentially a break-even point? And if you assume a 3% per year rent increase for our current space, then at 10 years, we're at $5,158,745. So roughly a 10-year payback or savings from rental to cover the cost of the renovations. When we've shared with the commission that there are options you have, we can continue to rent and we'd look for other opportunities for the Dancing Goats building. If we were to rent it, we would likely get about $150 a square foot. Annually, that's only about 273,000, and compared to the cost of our rent here, that's a consideration for the commission. And we could buy an existing building elsewhere, apparently for lower cost per square foot, we could buy something. I think the downside of that is the location is not likely to be the one that the Dancing Goats building so close to our operations and our property. And then could proceed with the proposed renovations, could also phase it. I think there are cost implications to phasing it. If the commission were to decide not to build out the commission meeting space right away, that's a savings of roughly $470,000. And then to come back and do construction later, there's some additional costs associated with that. So again, all options for the commission to consider. Other miscellaneous IOUs, Commissioner Vasavita had asked what is the state employee wage increase for the 25 to 27 biennium. In the first year, the increase is 3% for employees, and in the second year, it's 2%.
And are you saying that's equivalent to the cost of living adjustment?
Yeah, they don't
That's
have
across
cost of living adjustments. Yeah, it's across
the
the
workforce.
the workforce. Yeah. And then there's a question about how much we spent on environmental over the past 10 years. So that lays out what we spent on the different environmental projects, Butt Inlet, Cascade Pole, the East Bay cleanup, stormwater compliance, and then other environmental compliance. And then the staff, of course, who do all that good work, about $32 million. But we have also received some grants and other funding to help offset some of those environmental costs. And those total $18,500,000 roughly. So our total port expenditure over the past 10 years is about $13.5 million we've invested into environmental projects.
I have a few, if you don't mind going back.
Sure.
Go back to the previous slide.
Ooh, there it is.
Or
There it is.
the previous slide. Do you know what our wage increase across the board was for this budget year, 2025 that we're in?
We did 4%.
We did 4%. Thank you so much, Brent. And then for environmental spending, I think my intent was not to include stormwater compliance or costs that are rightly attributable to a specific tenant that is using a facility, but to understand the environmental costs that transcend, that are not about existing operations and therefore not recovered through existing leases, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. No.
Following up.
Yeah, we could do another.
Legacy costs or the things where we're assuming greater responsibility on behalf of the public.
Okay. Yeah, no, appreciate that. Okay. So back to the budget. The remaining timeline tonight is when we do our, we have the tax levy presentation for Mr. Gadman. We do another budget presentation and we have our public hearing. November 17th, there's a work session for the commission. And if there are final adjustments, we can discuss those at that time. And then on November 24th, we will bring the budget to you for adoption. So again, our budget assumptions, our overall revenues, we anticipate a decrease of 3%. There's several reasons for that. I think we've lost a tenant at the airport that had an impact. We've also just seen fewer ships coming in because of federal trade policies. And overall, our expenses are increasing. So we're anticipating an increase of 3.4%. And there's a variety of reasons: increased maintenance costs or doing some deferred maintenance. And then there's other costs that are out of our controls, like utilities and insurance. We're anticipating getting $7.49 million in grants in 2026. We are recommending that the commission take the 1% increase plus new construction. And for staffing, pursuant to the contract for 47A, we're building in a 3% increase. Again, pursuant to the contract with 47B, we're building in a 2.7% increase. And then we're recommending a 2.7% COLA for non-represented staff.
Can I go back?
Yeah.
There we go. I just wanted to mention from the last time we briefed this, the overall expenses are about 100,000 higher. That's for two reasons. One is some salary movement and salary increases that we hadn't calculated in yet. And also the benefits have increased quite a bit. And so we're trying to calculate that right now. Roughly, it's about 10% increase across the board, but it really depends on what plan people have. And that's statewide for anybody that's under the PEB program. All right. So actually, I could have used this slide to do it. So the expenses have gone up about $100,000. So currently we're looking at about a 781,000 in income from operations. As we go down, the property tax revenue, this is a little bit of a moving target. We do a calculation for that. It won't be certified by the treasurer for at least another week. They're waiting for some information, statewide assessment from the state. And so we should have a certified amount after that, and that'll lock in how much that is. No changes to anything below this. The grant revenue is the same. The non-operating revenue is estimated to be the same. And no real changes to the expenses, which leaves us about 292,000 from non-op income. The big ticket items are the capital expenditures. And so when you're looking at this, it's showing at the top what we believe our beginning cash balance will be with the treasurer, which is about 24.5 million. And our ending cash balance will be about 13.5 million. Any questions? I think it's back to you. Yeah.
Hey, so the tax levy, port policy, it's a commission policy. So the commission made this policy back in 2015 for the appropriate uses of the tax levy. And it says it's for general obligation bond principal and interest payments, environmental costs, capital asset acquisitions, operation and maintenance of public facilities, especially where user fees are set below the cost, such as with the Port Plaza, operation and maintenance of public spaces and roads, such as the East Bay Waterfront Trail and Marine Drive, real estate acquisition fund, and special projects as established by the commission. So here is the anticipated use of the tax levy in 2026. This is a slight change. The amount of the tax levy we're anticipating, as Brent indicated, is sort of a moving target. So this is a different, slightly higher total revenue and for tax levy purposes. But we anticipate using 4.6 million for principal and interest on our debt. And then there's over 2 million that would go to environmental expense, to government services, sort of what we do to operate as a government. And that includes the maintenance of public spaces. It also goes to supporting the community events we hold out on the Port Peninsula. It also goes to the Small Cities program, which we use to help more of our rural communities. It goes to special projects. It goes to support the Harbor Patrol. It goes to support member and partner costs. So the total use of the taxes that we're proposing in 2026 is 8.565 million, which is higher than the amount we'll get in total revenue from the tax levy. So funds from operations will be 355,000 that will go towards the uses of the tax levy. And this is another way of showing it. Just a big old pie chart. I guess the sort of new information on this page is the average levy per property is $68. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to talk about on that one. Okay. All right. And then this just shows again by comparison, and Mr. Gadman talked a little bit about this as well, that where we are in terms of the amount of tax levy we take is relatively small. On the left side here is a chart of all the various counties that have port districts and what the levy rates are of those ports within those counties. And we are down there in Thurston County, and we are, I think, 5th or 6th from the bottom. And so it's a relatively low levy rate. And if you, as Mr. Gadman indicated, the levy changes over time based on assessed values in the county. We have been as high as 30 cents per thousand over time. And this chart goes through 2024, but in 2026, we anticipate the levy rate to be 0.34 cents per thousand. Is this you?
Yeah. This is one of my favorite graphics for this presentation, and what this is showing you is two things. Is one is our current bond debt and how it's going down, and same thing with our debt servicing, which is also going down. So this next year we're going to have a little over 18 million in bond debt, and that's going down about 4 million a year to in 2028. We're retiring 2 of the bonds. And then in 2029, we're retiring a third. And that just leaves us 2 bonds that you jumped ahead of me. Just 2 bonds left, totaling about $8 million. So over a 4-year period, we'll cut in half, greater than half our bond debt. And in that same amount of time, because we're retiring those bonds, our debt servicing will go way down. So the goal here, when we talk about long-term, is that we're able to bank more within the treasury to be able to fund our capital projects without issuing bonds, because the bonds are great, and the capital projects tend to take a great outlay. The problem is then you're spending a lot of that levy money now on interest payments. So I geek out on these. All right, so just an idea of what these current bonds have been used for. About 6 out of these 15 were kind of centered around environmental projects. And then a couple more of the East Bay developments were really about developing the properties, putting in the roads, the infrastructure in order to be able to activate those properties. And then we have a couple in here that are really around infrastructure improvements or adding, in this case, marina docks in order to generate more revenue. And then there's one in here for just a large equipment purchase on the marine terminal. Just a graphic for non-operations. Very similar to what you saw up above in the spreadsheet, just kind of looking at it from a pie chart perspective. The most of the revenue coming in is from the levy, and most of it going out is through environmental work, cleanup work.
And then on to the capital investment plan. So we are proposing a big capital investment in 2026, over $15 million worth. Of that, about $3.5 million we anticipate will come from grant funds, and the rest we are proposing come from port funds. And this is just the graphic of the capital investment plan looking out to 2030. In part, this is to show that we anticipate lower capital investments in 27, 28, and I think even into 29. The highlighted projects are the airport. The runway is just a pavement rehabilitation, but also putting in, I think, LED lighting, and that is primarily grant funded through the FAA. And then some taxiway repair and striping. Again, none of this is for expanding anything. It's simply repairing what already exists there. At Boatworks, we're investing in a boatyard expansion, or propose to invest in that, and also a stormwater treatment system. Again, we're getting some grant funding to help with that, $550,000. At the marine terminal, there's some berth repairs, working on a maintenance facility, some paving, the second warehouse, and then potential for a dewatering facility. Dewatering facility is contingent on actually getting a particular cargo. If we do not get the cargo, then we won't be constructing the facility. And then the port headquarters building improvements. And again, the goals of our capital investment plan are to invest in revenue producing projects. The Boatworth expansion, the marine terminal warehouse are examples of that. We also want to invest in projects that reduce long-term expenses. The port headquarters building renovation could do that. And it's an expense that goes into G&A. And so by reducing those expenses, we also reduce the G&A that's allocated to our business lines. We also want to invest in environmental stewardship, and that's the LED lighting for the runways and also improve stormwater treatment at Boatworks. And we always want to take advantage of grant opportunities. So we'll have that for berth repairs, airport improvements, and stormwater treatment.
All right. Thank you. So looking at our capital projects, what we have on what we presented to you is everything we have currently planned and how it's phased out over these next 5 years. There may be other things that come up that will get added, not this next year, but in 2027. Right now, this is what it looks like. The bulk of this is this next year. The marine terminal projects won't begin. They're in the planning phase. They won't begin until really 28, 29, and 30. And there's a large amount of Maritime Administration grants for port improvements that are going towards that. And as Alex said, it's paving, it's a maintenance shop, and there's some other work that's being done. But this gives you kind of a flavor of what it looks like going up and kind of what we're anticipating the costs are going to be in order to do this work.
And here's what we anticipate spending on environmental in 2026. The Butt Inlet cleanup, $4 million. We're getting $2 million in an ecology remedial action grant. And then we also have $2 million coming to us from a state legislative appropriation, which is super helpful. Yeah.
We earlier heard from a member of the public who quoted that they believe the total cleanup cost was around 200 million. And we have heard that number before. Right now, what is your estimate of what the total cleanup cost will be?
We truly don't know. Until we get the sampling results back and they've been analyzed by the consultant, we don't really know what needs to be cleaned up, what needs to be dredged. So, I know 200 million was thrown out there, but I think we just don't know enough to make an estimate at this point.
And do you think we'll have an estimate within the next fiscal year?
That's a good question. Yes, says Sean Gilbertson. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Environmental administration, there's roughly 1.2 million. It includes all that you see there. Our salaries and benefits for our 5 environmental staff, Butt Inlet remediation, sea level rise collaborative work, our habitat conservation plan work, environmental monitoring, and our permit fees. Cascade Pole is $820,000. We spend at least that each year to run the Cascade Pole treatment plant and have done that for 30 years. And we fund that with tax levy proceeds. And then the Boatworks stormwater treatment is an $850,000 project covered under capital projects. And again, with $550,000 of that covered by grants. So overall, our budget goals are to try to increase revenue. So there's more opportunity to do the good economic development work that the port does. We want to avoid taking on additional debt, seeing the burden that it has on the budget and our use of the tax levy. We also want to always reduce expenses. And if we do move forward with the port headquarters renovation, then we'll save roughly $225,000 in 2027. In 2028, we'll have savings from both rent reduction, but also our bond payments go down by $700,000. And then 2029 and beyond, our overall expenses will go down by the additional rental savings, but also our bond debt is reduced by $3,500,000 per year. So there'll be a lot left to be able to do additional great things for the county. And we will on November 24th bring to you a motion to adopt the resolutions for both adopting the budget and then also for the adoption of the 2026 tax levy. So no need to make a motion tonight, but this is roughly what it will look like. We'll have specific numbers in there. Oh, nope, already did that. Sorry. There we go. Happy to answer questions.
I would like to I guess make a suggestion or ask a question, whatever this turns out to be. From slide 10, from slide 10, you had thank you. Yeah, the cash budget. And the beginning cash is at 24.6 million and the ending cash is 13.6 million. So we can see that the cash is taking a big hit because of the capital investments. The good news is we have the cash to make those investments. We don't have to borrow the money to do that. But I see later in the presentation, we have projected out our capital projects that we understand are now. We understand our debt obligations over the next 5 years. It would be very helpful if we could see how that affects our ending cash as a projection over the next 5 years at some point.
We can do that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And we'll have a work session for commissioners on the budget still next week, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
for your
thank you.
presentation. To provide public comment will be given an opportunity to be heard. When giving public comment, please state your name and where you reside. Please speak slowly and clearly as these proceedings are being recorded. In fairness to all who seek to give public comment, each person will be given 3 minutes to address the commission. This public hearing is dedicated for the presentation of testimony. No public debate is allowed. We will now hear comment from Lee Reiner.
Thank you for allowing us to speak regarding this proposed budget for the Port of Olympia. Many of us see all these numbers that, and these tiny, you can't even read them from the screen. They're so tiny, these numbers all together. I would think a spreadsheet would be, what, 100 pages of what went on over the last 20 minutes. So it's hard to comprehend really. But the bottom line is the Port of Olympia is losing money. Basically, you're on the backs of taxpayers. And I know people say, oh, it's nothing, it's nothing. Well, when you're having trouble paying your mortgage, when you're having trouble paying your taxes, when you're having trouble paying your house insurance and your cars, every little bit counts. And so considering what we're going through, I think the commissioners should probably wait until we get our new commissioners seated in January to make these decisions, because currently you're in debt. And basically $4.6 million in debt. That's $4.6 million in prints that's being paid for the debt for Port of Olympia. So every year, $4.6 million in interest is going to pay the Port of Olympia debt. That's a lot of money, $4.6 million. We could help the homeless with that. We have a lot of issues here in Olympia and Thurston County in general that we could use with $4.6 million. The environmental expenses are $2 million. We don't know how much the Butt Inlet cleanup is. $200 million is the number that they've been throwing out for a number of years, how much this would cost. We look at the dredging of Butt Inlet. What does that mean? That means they have to dig out the layers of soil to get these big, huge ships in. If we don't get somebody to pay for this dredging, we are not going to have the big ships come in. And yet you want to put in another warehouse at the marine terminal. You voted. Are we going to have another warehouse? And we can't even get the big ships in because you can't dredge, because we cannot have the feds come through with the money that we need to dredge. So, you know, many people say the Port of Olympia should be with the City of Olympia, should be with City of Lacey, should be with City of Tumwater, all working on these issues together, but you're not. You're not working with the city. You're not working with Lacey. You're not working with Tumwater. We need to have a regional wide group of people to address these issues. I thank you for your work. I thank you for your time, but we need more understanding of this with our city, with our county. We cannot afford this. You are in debt. You're going down in debt. And now you're going to New Marine Terminal. And of course, this issue about the hearing examiner and the airport thing, basically that's still up in the air. All these new hangars that would go in for these jets. Airport, who's going to pay for that? Our concerns are very real. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Reiner. Staff, Missy, is there anyone else signed in?
No one has a raised hand.
Okay,
Oh, wait. Yes, there's one. Oh, the first.
all right. I will call Carla Wolfsburg, please.
Hello, Commissioners. Good evening. My name is Carla Wolfsburg and I live in Tumwater. One of the things that has always concerned me is the amount of money that the port is going to expend on renovating the Dancing Goats building for future port offices. And I know that several years ago, the port commissioners at that time asked the then existing POCAC members a subcommittee to do an evaluation of whether or not they should invest in building a new building or purchasing a new building for the commissioner offices or the administration offices. And at that time, that particular subcommittee did not recommend that the commissioners invest in any building because they said it was not clear how many staff people would be working for the port in the future. And I just wonder if you've considered that perhaps this port may not have the number of staff that it has today, and it may not need the expanse that it's going to have, or the expenses and the expansive building that it's going to have. And I think that that is something that I've not heard anyone really address in any discussions about the Dancing Goat. It seems like you're just assuming that you're going to have the same number of staff people, administrative folks working for the port in the future. But what if you don't? And then it would be so much easier to then downsize in a lease space rather than to have a large space where you really can't just rent out part of it to some other group because it's basically turned into office space. So that's my question and my consideration for you to answer in this budget discussion tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsburg. And thank you for the public comments offered. There being no further testimony, I will now close the public testimony portion. We are not debating in this public hearing. So, but we do welcome comments to the commission in all formats that can be commented. Thank you, Ms. Wolfsburg. Thank you, Ms. Patton. There being no further testimony, I will now close the public testimony portion of the hearing. 2026 Budget and Capital Investment Plan is on file at the offices of the Port of Olympia, 606 Columbia Street Northwest, Suite 300, Olympia, Washington. So for anyone who's had trouble viewing the documents, you may go and see it at our offices. And any member of the public may obtain a copy at this address during normal business hours. A summary of the budget is also available on the Port's website at www.portolympia.com. Thank you. The commission will now move forward to the next agenda item. This is a briefing and East Bay Real Estate District update by Mike Reed, Director of Community and Economic Development.
Greetings and good evening, commissioners. Again, for the record, my name is Mike Reed. I'm your Community and Economic Development Director. And tonight I will be briefing you on East Bay, our East Bay Real Estate District, which is the upland property around the Children's Museum, and a potential negotiation agreement that we are exploring. So there are 3 lots remaining in the East Bay District. There used to be, it actually was a 9-lot subdivision that we did in the sort of mid 2000s that ultimately really kind of broke this property up and created this district here. We've since sort of renumbered them, but it was the Hands-On Children's Museum lot and things like that. The property, Westman Mill, which you can see on the bottom, was a mixed-use development. But now, after we have entered into agreements with the city to sell 2 parcels at the East Bay District, we are now down to just 3 undeveloped parcels left at the East Bay District. Those parcels, we refer to them as Lot 9, Lot 10, and Lot 12. You can see they're about approximately 20,000 square feet, 40,000 square feet, and 60,000 square feet. We also refer to them as the fenced parcels. And anyone who has driven through our properties downtown has seen these properties have been fenced off and underutilized and inactive for over a decade now. So the last major activity that occurred there on these properties from a development standpoint was a project that we refer to as Westman Mill. The ground lease for that was unanimously approved by the commission in the early part of 2017. And you can see it's that picture there. It's that mixed use development project. That's an 87 unit housing project. At the time in 2016, when we were actually negotiating the transaction, it was a priority of the then commission to see us pursue, or want the developer there to pursue, a LEED certification at the time in that 2015-16 era. It was a big deal to try to see a mixed use project get LEED certified. Actually, I think this may have been the first mixed use project to get LEED certified in Thurston County at the time. So you can see it. There's a picture of one of the windows looking out there, but also in that transaction that was approved by the commission there was also an option that was also approved for those lots 9, 10, and 12. That option has since lapsed. It lapsed in about 2023, primarily because of market conditions. I think we can all recall that was not exactly the most certain times to be entering into and moving forward with a large transaction with the port. So that being said, Urban Olympia, who is the company that did that phase, that Westman Mill, and the port, have restarted exploration and exploring the project and some interest in the remaining parcels earlier this year. Urban Olympia articulated interest in re-examining development potential with the port for the formerly optioned properties of 9, 10, and 12 that I was highlighting before. The proposed use would be for a mixed use project that would be consistent with the existing Westman Mill, with a focus of increased density and workforce housing. Staff is proposing that to advance this right now, that we would simply use an exclusive negotiation agreement and do some joint site planning. I will explain what those are. So what an exclusive negotiation is and what it is not. So what an exclusive negotiation agreement is just a mutual commitment to further explore the feasibility of a project between 2 partners. It's a document that memorializes early areas of agreement about project and shared objectives. And it's a commitment by us then to temporarily take the property off of the market while we're in that period of time. What an ENA is not, it is not a long-term transactionally binding contract. It is not a lease or an option agreement. Leases and option agreements and long-term transactional agreements have to come to the commission for commission approval. This is a 180-day agreement. That's less than a typical license agreement. So normally, that would not be a document that actually requires commission approval because it's not creating a long-term, lasting, or transactional agreement for the port. What we have discussed with the potential tenant there on a 180-day exclusive negotiation agreement, on the left hand of the screen are the obligations that we would explore. Those would be foregoing entertaining other development opportunities on those parcels. We would assist in some feasibility analysis. We would contribute up to $50,000 for some shared site planning efforts. I will brief what those are in the next slide. And then a commitment to working towards creating formal transaction agreements for commission action that are consistent with the existing ground lease terms. Said differently, maybe a little more simply, what they're looking for, Urban Olympia, is we've done a lease with you. We're an existing customer of yours. We'd like to do something that looks and feels similar to what we did, and we'd like some kind of a similar contract with the similar kinds of terms that we negotiated on the previous one. We'd just like to continue to expand. I would note there's a couple of interesting things in that transaction, and with Longshore here as well. One of the previous pieces that we did negotiate after conversations and hearing from Longshore was ensuring that anyone that was developing on that site and anybody who would be living on that site was informed in writing on their lease that they are ultimately waiving their right to quiet enjoyment, recognizing that they're adjacent to a truck route that moves close to the marine terminal. It was an awareness standpoint. Secondly, so here you can see on the right-hand side, this is what Urban Olympia would be committing to in a negotiation period. Is they'd be committing to the same 180 days, but they'd be working towards project feasibility, trying to determine, does this still work here? Is this viable? What would this cost them to be able to execute and do? They would share any materials associated with this joint site planning effort with us. And there is early agreement that they would be willing to commit to the concept that a minimum of 40 units in whatever development would occur there would be targeted towards workforce housing affordability. And in the smaller print there, I just want to read that for folks to sort of understand. Workforce housing affordability we've defined as rents and utilities not costing the tenant more than 30% of their monthly gross household income to households income to household whose income is 80% or lower of the area median income adjusted for household size and determined by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. That's a mouthful. That's actually that is a definitional statement about how to determine housing affordability that does come from federal language from HUD, or the Housing Urban Development, Department of Housing or Urban Development. When I reference this shared site planning effort, there's a handful of things that typically when we enter into a transactional agreement with someone, we say the development exercise is yours. You're going to go discuss exclusively with the city, the permitting, and so on and so forth, and they take on that obligation. There's a handful of conversations that we want to be a part of. And maybe influence on some of those. They are important to us, and we do not want to just exclusively relegate them to the developer as their singular responsibility. So I'd like us to join them in those planning efforts. We'll have to pay our pro rata share for some of that work, but it would effectively be focusing on things like base mapping and sea level rise projections for the property, some of the environmental condition work where we would be assessing solar and things of that nature, some infrastructure and utilities. So where would road access, stormwater and utilities, power, things of that nature be coming into the piece, developing a development framework. So if we have to change pad layouts or site access or circulation, being a part of that conversation as well. Mobility and connectivity. Where's your pedestrian and bicycle and commercial access routes? That was an important piece in the last time too. They've started sort of a connecting piece trail, but because they don't lease the balance of it, it stops and runs into a fence. We want pedestrian connectivity throughout this, and how that sort of lays out, we want to be a part of. And then also some public space options. So locations for shared amenities, such as a multi-site playground could be examined on there as well. One of the things that's important to me, I do not like the concept of economic development to a city. We do it with the cities that we're in. So I am always looking at a project through the lens of the city and their various planning documents. And even our own planning documents. Is there connectivity? Are we speaking to each other when we do this work? On the right-hand side of the screen, you can actually see the cover of what the city calls their housing action plan. It was a plan that they did in 2021 to address some of the housing challenges that the city of Olympia is experiencing right now. So I just pulled out a couple of quotes from there that I think sort of line up with where we're going and why the idea of trying to get some housing affordability baked into this transaction, I think is a good move as well. So top one, support mixed income housing development and preserve housing that serves moderate income households. That's on page 82 of that plan. Complete communities include homes affordable to households at a variety of income levels is important. That was on page 20. I even took a look at their draft housing chapter of their comprehensive plan, which is out for, I think it's actually done with the comment period and will be going for council action there shortly. But I thought this was interesting. Encourage new housing on transportation arterials and in areas near public transportation hubs. This piece of property is about 2 blocks away from the intercity transit center for Thurston County. I also found this one. This is in our own Vision 2050. It is a priority that we state in Vision 2050 that we're going to work with the city of Olympia to create a more welcoming environment downtown. I think that there's plenty of studies and analysis that adding more density, adding more people that call a downtown home adds to a sense of vibrancy and a sense of place. So I think that our goals are aligned there. This is a lot. It's too small to read in a format like this. Let me just tell you what this says. This is on the right-hand side is a quote from the Planning Commission. And on the left-hand side is a chart. Right-hand side, what it's saying is ultimately the city of Olympia needs to add 14,295 new housing units by 2045. And that's a growth statistic that they get from TRPC. It's how they have to build their comprehensive plan is to address some of these growth challenges that they're having. Or actually just to be in compliance with GMA, Growth Management Act. If they're going to hit that 200 or that 14,295 number that they need to add, or 14,295 number that they're going to have, they should be averaging about 715 new housing units per year. The last number of years, they've been at about 330 units. So they're consistently off from where they're at. And this year, in 2025, as of August, they'd only issued 47 permits for new housing units. I think that this is an opportunity for us to look over at the city of Olympia and say, we have a piece of property that is adjacent to your downtown core. We have housing adjacent to it. We've accepted the idea of housing on it before. We see that you're in a situation where this is a high priority for you organizationally. And I think we find a way to participate and bring an objective forward that would also help a neighbor of ours.
Mike?
Yes.
There's a lot on this slide.
Yes.
But what I'm hearing is the city of Olympia has more than met, by the way, its targets for how much parkland to add in the last 5 years, but is struggling to get halfway to their targets for housing densification, which is critical for us to achieve our climate goals as well as other sustainability goals.
You said it better than I. But yes, you could infer that.
I'm saying that to everyone in the audience.
Yes. So, yeah. And this is just, I think you've seen me do this now. I'm trying to, when we have a project here, I do want to look at what our peer city, what their needs are and what they're saying in their various economic development plans, comp plans, to make sure that we are in alignment with them. This is a little bit about Urban Olympia up here on the top left there. That's a quote that they provided. But I think it's just worth noting Urban Olympia is a local development firm. They are not a corporate firm from some far-flung city that treats their projects like a piece of paper in a portfolio. They live here. They use local banks. They use local equity. They use local contractors. Their tenants, from a commercial standpoint, are largely locally created, locally started, and locally owned entrepreneurs. So I just think that that's worth stating and worth noting. I clipped from their website what their values are. I won't read you that. They've done a number of projects in downtown. On the right, you can see a picture of one that I think is particularly nice looking. That's Annie's Flats. Another thing worth noting is that this site does have an environmental covenant placed upon it by the Department of Ecology. We have been through a significant amount of environmental analysis of this site, in so much that the Department of Ecology, who we defer to for environmental compliance, because they are the state sort of regulator in this space, they applied a covenant to this site. Urban Olympia has been through developing on a site with this covenant and understands sort of what that means. That covenant does make a requirement that we have to send to DOE, and they must approve of development plans, because you have to be able to comply with the covenant that is on site as you're developing on that site.
Mike, is
Yeah.
the covenant there because of hazardous contamination or because of its proximity to the inlet?
Because of upland contamination that was on site. So there's certain areas where we've where the determination was, hey, there's some low level background or whatever it may be. If you crack the cap that may be on there, and you can see in various areas where the ground looks different because there's gravel in certain areas, almost like a inch of gravel, that's acting like a cap. If you want to dig into that, you don't just get to take the dirt and just go take it wherever you want. You've got to stockpile it, test it, determine whether or not there could be any exceedances of certain levels. So it's really just for the upland piece there. I do want to talk about sea level rise with a project like this. This comes up every time we would be developing downtown. The city of Olympia is the permitting lead for sea level rise adaptation. So anybody who wants to develop on this site has to comply with the standards that our regulator and the permitting authority requires of them. And so they do not get a pass just because they're on port property. They have to meet the standards that the city sets and regulates for sea level rise development downtown. We have also historically heard a lot about Moxley Creek. Moxley Creek is a creek that a long time ago, unfortunately, was placed in a pipe buried 20 feet underground from Watershed Park, ultimately underneath parts of I-5 all the way down Plum, and then discharges into the Sound. That pipe there is only the smallest fraction of it is actually on port property. It's on city right-of-way underneath roads. It actually goes from Cherry Street down kind of all the way to I-5. The city of Olympia has expressed multiple times to us, they are not interested and they have no intent on exploring or interest in daylighting Moxley Creek and opening up and removing the roads there. Here is another picture of that, where that pipe exists. So you can see it's running down a street that the city owns, and then it cuts through the campus of buildings that the county is exploring, putting their county offices into. The only spot where it actually kind of touches the corner of our property is right there at almost where it discharges. And also, this is another thing, it doesn't discharge on property that Port owns either. That outfall is actually not on, the city doesn't own the land where that outfall occurs either. So there's real complications with daylighting Moxley Creek. And the biggest one is the people that control the land on how to do it have said they are not interested in doing it. And that's the city. So in summary, the staff are exploring an exclusive negotiation agreement with Urban Olympia. I just wanted to brief you on the fact that these conversations are occurring. I do not think that anything new would be coming forward to you until after that exclusive negotiation period would end. And then we would ask the commission, if it materializes, to take action at that point in time. There is scenarios where we do this kind of work and people are doing their feasibility and they realize the market isn't there, or it costs too much, or whatever it may be. And there have been instances where things have not materialized. But that's where we would think that if something were, it would be in 180 days that we would come back to you. ENAs are not long-term financially binding contracts. Any option agreement or lease would need to come forward for commission action. The port would commit funding towards that joint site planning effort that I think it's worth us sitting at the table on. And Urban Olympia is committing to incorporating some workforce housing affordability into this project. And again, finally, the ENA would be for 180 days. Questions or comments?
Thanks, Mike. That was a lot. Great job.
You're welcome. It's almost like I've done it before.
Just a couple of clarifying things. I think on slide 6, you were talking about the ENA and explaining that a bit. And you said the word partnership.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this project could go beyond the what we would maybe consider our normal operation of lessor-lessee relationship.
I think that's a great question. The standard transaction that we have and the existing transaction that we have with the current tenant, it is a very landlord-tenant based contract. We have not invested into that project. That was, here's a pad, you go do all the work. I still think largely that's the kind of model. I don't see us investing in something unless through this process we make a determination that there's something for some reason that we wanted to. That would be articulated when it would move forward. The thing that I see that we are sharing in an effort on is some of this initial feasibility, because there's a couple of pieces in there that I think I have heard from you in various other conversations. That kind of planning, where would public access be, or could there be some other community amenity or public benefit? I've heard you. I think that you want us to, where we have the opportunity, incorporate that in. To be able to do that, I think we have to share in some of that effort. So that's
okay. Great, thank you. And then second clarifying thing, you mentioned the 40 affordable units that would be associated with that. So is that a hard number, or would that be subject to feasibility? Or
that's going to be subject to feasibility in terms of ultimately can the project move forward and how many total units. Ultimately, where we're looking at that right now, the current project has about 80. The current project of Westman Mill has about 87 units. The remaining balance, now while it's not all contiguous and the shapes are, some of them are kind of funky and hard to maximize, but it's double the square footage in terms of land that is Westman Mill. And so we're kind of roughly thinking, we could think that a wouldn't be out of line to think that a development project there could generate about 160 total units, 40 units in there. So that's 25%, 25% is kind of where we would target. Because again, I also want to harken back to the quote that's in the Housing Action Plan. Having mixed income levels in a project is kind of the goal. So what I tried to do is just early on, I'm just sliding a bookmark in and saying, I think that this is important to this commission, and I know it's important to the city. So we're going to mark this as early as we can as importance to us, so that any future negotiations or discussions, can we agree on this kind of number? Now, could that number move a little bit? It may, but yeah.
All right, great. Thank you. That's a great presentation. Thanks.
I also thought it was very good. I'd like to build a little bit on Commissioner Isles' question on the set aside of units that we'd be negotiating. You've used workforce and affordable almost interchangeably.
Yeah.
I just want to encourage you, from my perspective here, where I can speak, that the up to 80% AMI is usually what we call, affordable housing.
Yeah.
But I believe here in Olympia, there are, just from my, social, between 80 and 120% AMI, there's quite a need for those units downtown. And so those are both income levels that are different than it being high-end condos across the board. And I do believe in both those units being important as targets. The other thing I wanted to say is I appreciate you entering into this small level of joint planning upfront, because I do think we heard from citizens and residents that that connectivity to downtown, right now it feels like there's a desert space between downtown and the Port Peninsula. And the more we're going to be trying to kind of create trails and amenities out on the peninsula, the more important it is for our economic development downtown that there's good connectivity. So I appreciate this approach and I'm in favor of it.
Great.
No questions, but great presentation. I'm also in favor of it, and I really appreciate the 25% possibly affordable housing units, and more would be nicer. And like I mentioned.
Thanks. Okay.
Thank you.
About to do it.
Okay, with that, that concludes our briefing for Mike Reed, and we move to commissioner reports and discussion. Commissioner Montano, do you have any reports for us?
I did want to mention after my town hall, just thank you to the staff, you know, Alex, Chris, Sean, Tabor, Emily, Tina, and Missy. Thank you all so much. And Emily too. I know she did some of the background work with Tabor. Thank you all so much for really just putting in the extra effort and supporting me in that way. I enjoyed hearing from the community, and I know you all spent a little extra time. No, that's all I have.
That's all. Okay. Commissioner Sanders?
Yes, I attended the Grand Mountain Rochester Chamber, where we listened to the superintendent talk about the Rochester School District. And they had several students from the Indian Education Program that receives federal funding. And so it was really awesome to see the students there sharing their stories about how they have after school programs with tribal crafts and connecting tribal students with community and family events. And so it was a really awesome meeting. And so that's all I got.
Terrific. Mr. Isle?
Yeah, aside from attending the Solid Waste Advisory Committee meeting, I was honored and privileged to be invited to the Board of County Commissioners meeting where they proclaimed November as Native American Heritage Month. That was very kind of them, and I think it was very well attended, and just appreciate the ceremony that they put on and the recognition. And then finally, I did to cover for the absence of Commissioner Harding, I did attend the TRPC Meet the Candidates for their executive director search here, which was right here last Thursday night, I think. And then on Friday, attended the interviews for those, and they did select a new executive director for TRPC. And I know it's public knowledge now, but I won't say who it is until they actually get get that finalized. But I think it's a great choice, and I think it'll be a great relationship that the port can continue with TRPC.
Thank you. I am looking forward to Friday. The sort of mayors from each of our Thurston County jurisdictions meet together, and I'm sure it'll be a chance to learn of how they are trying to cope in a chaotic environment with keeping our local governments funded. I want to mention two things. I enjoyed trick-or-treating downtown with my 8-year-old. It's the first time I went downtown on Halloween after coming to the potluck here, which with our thriving workforce. And it was nice to see the businesses open in the evening. They still mostly closed right at 6 p.m. Olympia style. We also had an election, and I want to welcome, we have Krog Unsold in the House. He's not yet, the election results aren't certified, but my understanding is his opponent has conceded. And so welcome our future commissioner here at the back of the room, Krog Unsold. And we still have a pending election to learn the results of. So that might be not discussable until certification. Finally, I'd like to thank all the people who were here to weigh in on the budget today. And especially I see that we have, oh, maybe we've lost him. Thank the union for showing up and extend my invitation. I would love it if you'd like to convene a meeting with some of the other unions in the county. We'd like to have a conversation here at the port about ways that we can support workers at this difficult time. I have heard from other union leaders through my other work that out of work lists are growing. And I think it's something, understanding how capital infrastructure can be sort of a boon to our local economies and to keeping good money back in the local workforce is important to me at this moment. I did have a chance to attend a Partners for Rural Washington infrastructure workshop hosted by the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank on Thursday. And people were looking at kind of what are the ways we could leverage other income streams and private sector investment, but in public sector outcomes. So whether it's cleaning our water or preventing forest fire by removing vegetation. So it's a really interesting conversation, but I'd like to be more connected here to our local union. So thank you with that, and that's the end of my commissioner report. Other business. I have one thing for other business, so staff are already aware, but I would like to work on, and we'll be bringing forward for the commission consideration, some possible changes to our POCAC resolution. I would like to make sure that as we move into the new year, we have even closer communication by having a commissioner part of the POCAC. And there are some other best practices that staff are working to bringing forward. I want to thank those who have served on the POCAC. I understand that new appointments were requested and are going out following kind of our current resolution, but I'd like the other commissioners to consider in the future, at a future meeting, making some changes as we move forward next year. That was all I had for other business. Great, meeting announcements.
Right, so this Wednesday, as I already indicated, I'm holding a town hall here at 5:30. Welcome folks to participate in person or remotely. On Monday, November 17th, we have a work session for the commission, and just note that the start time is 3 p.m. rather than 4 p.m. And there will be a discussion, or the agenda includes currently a discussion about the POCAC. So there's an opportunity for that conversation then. On Tuesday, November 18th, there's the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. And then on Monday, November 24th, a regular commission meeting. That's it.
Thank you.